Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Integrity Restored podcast. I'm Jim O'Day, your host, and I'm blessed to be joined by Jordan Castille. Jordan has been involved in helping men recover from pornography and sexual addiction, helping women recover from betrayal trauma, and helping couples flourish after the scourge of pornography and sexual addiction has entered their lives. Jordan, why don't you take a couple minutes just to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So I live in Texas, in College Station, where Texas A&M University is. I've lived here since I was a college student for over 27 years now, and
You were a
I'm
college student for 27 years, Jordan?
for 27 years. No, uh, it feels like I'm a student of life, though. But I went to college, moved here 27 years ago. So, um, so yeah, I am married to my wife, Charisse. We have three children, uh, two boys and a girl, ranging from ages 9 all the way down to 1.
Wow. Busy.
So,
Busy house.
yeah, we're busy and a little bit tired.
No question.
Um, and yeah, I work with men, couples, to heal. I've worked at a church locally here in College Station for 16 years, and I've done a lot of ministry, one-on-one discipleship, outreach, all of these just different ministry responsibilities over the years.
Mhm.
But yeah, my heart has landed in helping men heal, and that's a huge part of my story.
Yep. Yep. So, what is the name of your ministry? Where can people find more information about it if they're interested?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's castillecoaching.com.
Hmm.
And the ministry that I've worked with is a nonprofit ministry called Reliant Mission, and the local church that I've worked with here is Fellowship Church.
Hmm. Hmm. So, give us a little bit of your story because I think that's really going to help listeners. The previous podcast they just recorded a little while ago, it's funny how the Holy Spirit honestly works these things out. Was talking about virtue versus vice, and how if we grow in virtue, God is able to use even those vices that we struggled with for a long time to help others. And I think your story is going to absolutely illustrate that. So tell us your story, Jordan.
Yeah, well, thanks. So, um, just kind of a typical family. Mom and dad. I have two older brothers, and the kind of the family environment I grew up in, really, uh, we really didn't talk about emotions that much, and a lot of the way that we would express emotion would be either uh, intense happiness or anger, explosive anger. And so we really didn't talk about feeling afraid or sad, and it was just kind of our family culture. And my relationship with my parents, who I love a lot today, thankfully, good relationship with them. But just in that environment, I was very attached to my mom. I kind of would be called the mama's boy. Um, and my dad just worked a lot. Uh, very busy with work, and very warm, very loving father. I just didn't get to interact with him a whole lot. And so as I grew up, I was introduced to pornography at the age of 10. Uh, and uh, back then it was magazines and VHS tapes, kind of whatever you could get your hand on.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, when I left for college and had a computer, internet pornography just took off for me.
Yeah.
And um, kind of, I'll give you some snapshots here. Um, and I would say my college years, that was the height of my pornography addiction. Thankfully, God really intervened into my story when I asked Him to intervene in my story. And it was very powerful. But I'll back up just a little bit. So in middle school, high school, the puberty years going into adulthood, um, I would say I was pretty comfortable with myself. I got into the sport of gymnastics
Mm.
because watching the Olympics one summer, I was astonished by these guys that could do this, and so I um, asked my parents, "Hey, could I get in a class?" And I really took to the sport. And I grew up in kind of a small little town in Texas. So what you could kind of do with it was, and it was kind of gaining popularity for guys to be a cheerleader
Mm.
in high school. So I did that. I tried out, made the team, was really, really good at doing flips and eventually, the stunting that, would throw girls up in the air and everything. But because I was the only guy on the team, and this was the late 90s, I was severely bullied
Mm.
for it. And everyone, saying every word in the book, questioning my sexual identity
Yep.
and who I am. And it, I would act like I would let the words roll off my back, but I was struggling internally because my junior year in particular was one of the most difficult years for that, and it was really really hard.
Hmm.
And I felt unwanted. I felt alone.
Yeah.
I felt like some kind of a freak, and I felt like nobody wanted me around.
Mm.
And that, pornography and video games were kind of my go-tos in that time. To what?
That was your self-soothing,
Yes, that was my self-soothing.
self-medicating for those feelings. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, um,
You start to doubt your own sexuality.
I did not for a while, but eventually with pornography, I found myself gravitating towards the same sex. And so in college, that's kind of where that type of pornography took off for me, where I began viewing that and I became very addicted to it. And of course, through that process of looking at this type of pornography, my attraction to the same sex just skyrocketed. And it was probably about the end of my third year of college that I cried out to God for help. And I said, God, you either need to take these desires away, especially the arousal that I had toward the same sex, which that didn't happen, or show me how to follow you was my request. And soon after that, a friend of mine invited me to a small group at the church that I've been a member of uh, now for 22, 23 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The one invitation. I want to talk for just a moment. I don't want to focus on the same-sex attraction piece, but I do want to talk about something that I've noticed, Jordan. 10 years of this work now at Integrity Restored. And I get phone calls from middle-aged or older men, husbands, fathers, grandfathers, completely freaked out because after years of porn use, now they're only turned on by gay porn. And it's the way the mind works, right? It's always looking for something novel, something new.
Right.
And that's the next thing on the list. Unfortunately, it could get worse than that.
Yeah, sure.
So I just wanted to bring that up for our listeners. And if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I think, for me in particular, and a lot of guys that I work with, uh, helping yourself to get sober and really to understand what is underneath, that arousal pattern, the fantasy that you have here, can be very powerful in helping that attraction to lose its power. And I'm putting this pretty simply, but really understanding what are the good God-given desires that you're trying to have filled up or touched on in this type of pornography. And a lot of times it's simple things like connection and a feeling of being wanted, chosen, seen, heard, all of these things. And in normal everyday life, we might not be getting this. And in pornography, for whatever reason, well, it has a sense of that getting that need and desire met when in reality you use the pornography, you're done with it, and then you feel shamed and empty after. But for that small moment, you feel like those desires are getting met.
So, to your path to sobriety and transformation, obviously you got invited to this small group at this church, and
Hmm.
that was the beginning. But what else did it look like? Because people are always looking for the one silver bullet, and I
Sure.
think there isn't one. It's a lot of different steps. So, what did your path look like, Jordan?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say confession is a huge part of it, and it took me 9 months to feel safe in sharing that I was viewing gay pornography with my small group leader at my church. I would share, the, oh, I struggle with pornography, just like any other guy. But I wasn't specific, and I felt the Lord really revealing to me, you need to share this, Jordan. And I was terrified out of my mind to share it, but thankfully my small group leader did a great job of, listening, hearing me, and showing me compassion and the love of Jesus. And I felt accepted in that moment when, my story in high school was a lot of rejection.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's an important emotional, psychological, psycho emotional response to that rejection in high school from the other guys.
mhm.
as to why the same-sex porn was so enticing to you.
Right.
And I think people need to realize that. And that's the problem with this work. You have to go that deep. And that's painful. And
Yeah.
that's scary. And that's embarrassing. And it's a lot of things. So, okay, so you confess to your small group leader. And then what other steps did you take? Did you see a counselor? Did you start talking to somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, back then, the early 2000s, there wasn't a lot out there as far as education around sex addiction. I I found any book that I could get and read it. So, of course, back then, Every Man's Battle was kind of the popular one. Um, and but every step of the way, I got blockers on my computer. They existed back then, and they were not the greatest. But so I took a lot of steps. I would tell my roommates when I'm struggling. I I began to, if I looked at pornography or masturbated, I would share with uh, the guys I was closest with in my small group. So there was a lot. I would say for me there was a high level of motivation with the Holy Spirit working in me to share, to confess regularly, and to bring this into the light.
Well, that accountability is a critical component of recovery,
Right.
honestly. Yeah.
Right. And then several years later, a small group of us, we got a workbook that Dr. Mark Laser wrote on having a small group for men in recovery. And, it's the steps work. And so I began to work through that. And, I worked through different parts of my story where I had trauma, and I began to, understand the how my actions, affected me personally, and it also affected people I interacted with on a day-to-day basis. And and so that was a big part of my recovery as well. Um, Another tool that God has given me is, uh, have you heard of Transformation Prayer Ministry?
No.
Okay, so Dr. Ed Smith developed this years ago, and the way it works is in present day life, you have an emotional trigger. And, it could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be, something that arouses you. And you feel that trigger. And in your mind, you think back to when you first experienced that trigger in your story. So, working through, childhood, and for some of us, you know, uh, adult life, and you you understand what you believe about yourself in those stories. And so, a big one of my lies was, I'm not one of the guys, or I'm all alone, nobody loves me. And when you identify those beliefs, you invite Jesus to come in to speak to you in those beliefs. And when he speaks his truth to you, it removes those lies with his truth, so that in present day life, the trigger doesn't have as much power anymore because you believe the truth, and the truth truly sets you free. Um,
And it's one of the hardest misconceptions for us as human beings to break is our own belief in who we are, and not realizing that the most important thing of who we are, regardless of what we've done, our successes, our failures, our foibles, what it doesn't matter. we are always beloved sons and daughters of our
Yeah,
Heavenly Father. And that's a really tough one. But boy, once you get there, it's transformative, isn't it?
it is. And I would say the powerful part of it when, you believe something like, yeah, I'm not loved, to Jesus just simply saying, I love you. It's, and we hear about it every Sunday in church that he loves us. We read about it, and actually hearing him say those three little words,
Yep.
it's very powerful.
Yep. Yep. That's for sure, brother. Um, Wanted to talk a little bit about betrayal trauma and your work with wives, girlfriends, well, and even now, increasingly husbands, unfortunately,
Hmm.
who have suffered betrayal trauma due to their spouse's sexual or porn addiction.
Yeah, so I've gotten into this type of work within the last couple of years, and mainly I help husbands who have betrayed their spouses to be sensitive to them and to grow in empathy toward them so that they can really heal together. And recently I've been working with a couple, and the husband has been a client of mine for probably 2 years now, and helping him work through a lot of these beliefs that I was telling you about. And we've gone through memory after memory, and Jesus bringing his truth and peace. And now with his wife and her emotional trauma from his betrayal, they're actually, and I work with them both on the screen. They've been able to have very good conversations, her and her hurt to him, and he's been able to empathize with her, apologize, really. And you gotta do more than one apology
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
with this trauma, but there's been a lot of healing in their relationship because of the transformation that has been taking place in his life,
Right.
and then them coming together. it it's been powerful, just having even the simplicity of, they do daily check-ins, and she shares how safe she feels with him. She shares her feelings with him, and he also shares his feelings with her. And they I've been highly encouraged. Within a month time frame, it feels like they have a different marriage now.
Well, there's communication happening now, which
Yes.
probably never happened in their marriage because, quite honestly, it just doesn't happen unless you're intentional about it. One of the things I always recommend to couples, Jordan, is I call it thorns and roses or highs and lows.
Hmm.
Every day they should set aside, 5, 10 minutes, just talk about the best part of your day and the worst part of your day. Don't try to solve anything for each other, just communicate it.
Right.
And when couples in recovery start doing that, it's amazing how it builds trust again in the relationship because that trust that's broken by this betrayal for the woman can raise so many wounds back to childhood and
Hmm.
that she's not even thinking about. We got to work on building the trust. What has your experience been?
Yeah, well, definitely without trust, and a marriage is not going to have intimacy. And so you have kind of the basics of intimacy, I would say, are safety, honesty, trust, all of these things. Without those in the equation, a marriage isn't going to heal. And and so with those daily check-ins, it like you said, it helps with communication. And for a wife to see that her husband is being vulnerable about this was really hard for me today, and there can be some boundaries around what he shares with her, especially.
Absolutely needs to be boundaries.
Yes, yeah. Um, but just to simply say, yeah, today I struggled in seeing a person.
I
Uh,
was tempted, whatever it is. Yeah,
yeah, or I struggled with feeling shame today because of our marriage. And just for her to hear that vulnerability coming from him, it's going to help to increase trust in the relationship.
agreed. I want to hit on one important point. We only got a couple minutes left, but when you talked about intimacy, you talked about safety. Ladies and gentlemen, please hear what Jordan was saying. He never once mentioned sex. And so often we have this false definition of intimacy that it's what happens in the bedroom. But true intimacy starts at the kitchen table
Mhm.
in the morning. Remember that intimacy is far more than just a physical act, ladies and gentlemen, please. Jordan, I just want you to share your website again if people are interested. Love to have you back on the show again. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for your time. Where can people find more information about Jordan Castille?
Yeah, so it's Castille Coaching. That's Castille coaching.com.
Great. My brother, thank you for being on. Thank you for your sharing and your vulnerability of your story. We're grateful to you and thank God for you, my brother, doing this important work.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks as always for watching, for listening. If this program or any of our products and services have helped you in any way, please consider making a donation. We couldn't do what we do without the help of generous friends like yourself. May God bless your journey.